We've got a few things today. You know, I try and put together some of the best tech articles of the week and make sure they're available for you. That's exactly what we'll be doing yet again today. We've got an interesting heist here. We've talked about Bitcoin heists before. You know about those, right? Well, we're going to talk about a very interesting one that resulted in some arrests in Iceland just this last week. The feds and probably others, including the bad guys, are probably able to hack and unlock every iPhone ever made. We'll talk about why and what's going on there. The FBI is also warning about your W-2. We've got some stuff about stolen passwords today. New Orleans, they've been secretly using predictive policing technology. Is this legit or not? I don't know here. Bill Gates got an interesting thing here about cryptocurrencies, and his opinion I actually agree with. And how often do I agree with Bill Gates? Craig Peterson here, and here we go. All right, guys. Hey, welcome. We are live here on the air. It's another busy day today. I appreciate you being with us. I know this is a little bit long for most of the Facebook Lives or YouTubes or a lot of other videos. We have some real hardcore people that love to watch the whole show because we do cover so many things here on the show. But it's about a 45-minute show ultimately, and a little bit longer because on this we talk through the commercials and the breaks, and right now there's one running, and it's basically a little introduction here for the radio show. So here we go. We've talked before about cryptocurrencies, in fact, a lot about it. You just heard Mark Hebert talking a little bit about it at the end of his show. In fact, I had Mark on my show to explain a little bit about what is happening with cryptocurrencies. We've also had Celine MacArthur on. You know her. And Celine's great person. I just love her to death. And she is right now kind of trying to figure out what she wants to do. She's an investigative reporter. And that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. And there are very few TV stations that actually do it anymore. And she was working over at NH1 on the TV side. And I was happy to be with her many times on the air on TV. But she had the time and the ability. Bill Binney let her go out, and they funded her to do real research. And one of the things she found out when she was out doing some of this research was that there was a huge opioid problem here in the Northeast. And frankly, it's all over the United States now. So she wanted to get to the bottom of it, try and figure out what was up. So when the whole NH1 TV shut down, she decided to take some of her severance pay and some of her savings, as did Freddie, who is her camera guy and video editor and cohort here in putting all this stuff together. Very talented, both of them. And they traced the drugs and traced the drug route. They went all the way back to where the drugs are ultimately coming from and how are the drugs affecting each part of this whole pipeline. The pipeline is a dangerous one, frankly, and she did some interviews with people that did not want to be on camera. But, you know, what are you going to do with that, too? How else are you going to put together a video? So she put it all together. It aired down in Boston on a station. There were some problems with the airing. She's trying to get it to air again. But one of the things that Celine MacArthur pointed out was that many people die because of this whole opioid problem. Now, we're not just talking about maybe, you know, the users and I know some people that don't have much sympathy for the users, but we all know people who have had this problem, including some major radio hosts. Remember Rush Limbaugh with his back problem and how he became addicted to the painkillers that he was taking. It's easy to have happen. It's difficult to break yourself from. And opioids are getting more and more controlled. Here's the problem that we see. I attended an FBI briefing where the FBI was discussing the whole pipeline. Now, they weren't approaching the pipeline the same way that Celine was approaching it, where, she was talking about it's here's where it comes from. Here's what this country's trying to do. And here's how it comes into our country. Here's how it's transported in and transported to our country. And here's the lives that it affects, which I think is just phenomenal. Great story here. But what the FBI was talking about in the briefing was how cryptocurrencies are being used in the drug trade. Now, yeah, sometimes they're used by the end dealer. Most of the time the end dealer is looking for cash. But how do you move the money around if you're a bad guy? You can't just write a check to your supplier, right? That's a problem. Your check might bounce. Your supplier might not be too happy with that, but it's easy to trace, very easy to trace a check. Cash, you don't want to have that much cash because these guys are constantly robbing each other. Plus, of course, there's third parties that know about the cash transaction and are going to come after it as well. So you probably don't want to do the cash thing. Diamonds, there's another way that often, historically, money has been moved around. So you get diamonds, they have a certain value to them, and you're now able to trade, and you trade in diamonds. So I pay my bill to my supplier with a load of diamonds. And they're easy, they're small, you can fit them in your pockets. They're probably not going to be picked up, when you're traveling, but you can only carry so many diamonds. But here's the other problem with diamonds. How do you know that your diamonds that you bought to pay your supplier with are legitimate? How do you know they're not cubic zirconia mixed in there? So that the bad guy that sold you the diamonds for the cash and laundered your money isn't now cheating you out, and you give those diamonds to your supplier, the big-time drug dealer, and the big-time drug dealer now goes ahead and kills you because you just cheated him out of millions of dollars, right? Does that make sense to you? So it's very difficult in the drug trade to pay for this stuff, to move the money around. Tom Cruise recently did a movie about some of this stuff and how he was involved in this one guy. The story is mostly true from what I understand, but they were moving drugs for the CIA, and you probably remember during the Reagan administration, the whole Iran-Contra problem that came up and the investigations, and it got really crazy, frankly. But things were done that were of questionable legality or just completely illegal. So the FBI is telling me now that what's happening is that the bad guys are using the cryptocurrencies. It makes sense. So they will go ahead and say, okay, you owe me $1 million for these drugs. And that $1 million today has a certain value if you're using a certain cryptocurrency. So for instance, let's just use Bitcoin because it's the most well-known. And today's Bitcoin value is, let's say it's $10,000 a coin, which is about right. So you transfer so many coins from you to your supplier, and it moves down the chain. And then those Bitcoins can ultimately be turned into local cash, so it's the cash of the country your supplier's living in. And they can also be traded further, because many people, more and more businesses, are accepting these cryptocurrencies online. I'm not sure that's such a great idea, right? Because cryptocurrencies have some sort of a value, but there's no intrinsic value behind them. Ultimately, they will be worth zero. The value fluctuates. I've been watching it over the last week, and you see $200 a day fluctuations. That's a lot of money right there. But they're using the cryptocurrencies in order to transfer the funds. And that gets to be a problem. Now, the good news is the bad guys think that cryptocurrencies are untraceable. The reality of the matter is they are traceable. In fact, the FBI in the briefing went into a few different cases of where they had traced down some people and caught them. And you probably know about a couple of them. You know about the guy that was running the Silk Road, which was a dark web project where, remember on the dark web, that's where the bad guys are trading your personal information. They're stealing money. They're stealing IDs. They're trading it back and forth, and they're using some of the cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin to buy and sell your information online. Well, the Silk Road was a website where you could buy pretty much anything. And that includes your identity, right, if it's been stolen. So you darn well better know if your identity's been stolen. You'd better know if your social security number was stolen in the hack, if your name was stolen, your address, your phone number, right? You got to understand this stuff in order to protect yourself. And we just found out this week the Equifax hack. There was 2.5 million, approximately, more people whose information was stolen than was previously revealed. So, yeah, well, 2.5 million. When you're talking about hundreds of millions of people, then, what's 2.5 million? But that information's out on the dark web. Buying and selling illegal drugs happening on the dark web. Illegal firearm sales happening on the dark web, right? You're never going to stop the bad guys. It's just impossible. Well, Bill Gates is saying that cryptocurrencies have caused death in a fairly direct way. And you can kind of figure out how and why. He's not a fan of cryptocurrencies, and I can see that, right? He's saying that cryptocurrencies subvert governments' abilities to intercept terrorist funding, illegal drug transactions, and more. So when we get back, I'm going to read the quote directly from Bill Gates, where he responded over on Reddit about his opinion on cryptocurrencies. Very important stuff. Want you to hear about this. We'll talk a little bit about this new Bitcoin heist, another reason not to mess around with cryptocurrencies. And, Kodak's getting into it, but it's a different thing. If you're interested, we can talk about that. And then later on, we'll get into why iPhones are now probably completely hackable. Stick around. You're listening to Craig Peterson. Don't forget to visit us online, craigpeterson.com. craigpeterson.com, that's SON/subscribe. And I'll sign you up for my weekly show notes. And of course, that contains all of the information, including things we don't get to today. I curate the best articles out there on the internet when it comes to tech, the things you need to know. And if you want to get it all, you have to be on my email list, craigpeterson.com/subscribe. Stick around. We'll be right back. Okay, everybody. This article is interesting. I'm going to get into a little more detail here in this article before I read the quote on the air and to you guys, but several Redditors are taking issue with the statement that Bill Gates made that anonymity is the main feature of cryptocurrencies. Because, Bill's going at it saying, hey, listen, the bad guys love this stuff. It's kind of the main feature. Why would anyone use a cryptocurrency? And in reality, there's a lot of people that like to keep transactions private. It's nobody's business but their own, right? And that's part of the reason why when this country was established, there was no way for the government to tax our income. Because the founding fathers didn't want government getting involved in our lives to that degree. So they're saying, in fact, one of the moderators said, most cryptocurrencies today are quasi-anonymous, but if you ever need to cash out in real money, you'll run into issues. And there's all kinds of anti-money laundering, strike forces that are in place, et cetera, et cetera. So it's one thing to have Bitcoin, it's another to be able to use it, right? Isn't that the bottom line here? And they're saying, hey, it's really not anonymous. You think it's anonymous because you have a number, and that's your wallet number. It's a special number associated with your wallet. It's a unique identifier, hopefully, that is for your wallet and your wallet only. But ultimately, they're traceable because if you use the money, the information is kept in logs, in transaction logs. And if you ever use it at a place that anybody knows about, you're caught, right? That's all it takes. Use it once in a place that people know about, and some of those audit trails will come back to bite you. So it's really interesting. There's other people too. Warren Buffett's predicted a bad ending. Those are the words he used for people investing in crypto. But he was talking about the reliability of the investment, not the human impact like Bill Gates was talking. Crypto Compare CEO Charles Hayter also saying that these cryptocurrencies were given their first utility in the dark markets. Now remember, a lot of the internet has been driven by questionable things, right? Porn king on the internet for a long time. That's how we got a lot of the payment systems we have today, was from them. So he's saying that the cryptocurrencies may be used right now by the dark web and in the dark markets, but ultimately they're going to be used just for regular transactions more and more as we move forward. It's kind of interesting. You got to read this article. It's from Ars Technica, and you'll see it up on my website at craigpeterson.com. Hey, welcome back. Doing a little bit of live here also. You can catch me on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com/CraigRadio. Facebook.com/CraigRadio. You'll see me there. And as I say every week, you can find me on the, what's the best way? Well, subscribe easily. You can email me at craigpeterson.com. I have the facebook.com/CraigRadio. I'm just kind of all over the place. And of course, you can text me anytime. I send out reminders before the show starts so people can tune in and listen on iHeart. iHeart, of course, you can hear it around the world. You can hear it in your car. And that way you can listen to these stations like my anchor station here or any of the other iHeart stations that I'm on. And that link, there's one way to get it. Just text my name, Craig, to 855-385-5553. Just text Craig to 855-385-5553. And shout out to everyone that's already done that. You'll be joining, well, we're getting close to 1,000 people that I text every week. So let's hit that 1,000 number. We're trying to hit it before. Well, back to cryptocurrencies. This is Bill Gates' response on Reddit when he was asked about his opinion on cryptocurrencies. He said, the main feature of cryptocurrencies is their anonymity. I don't think this is a good thing. The government's ability to find money laundering and tax evasion and terrorist funding is a good thing. Right now, cryptocurrencies are used for buying fentanyl and other drugs. So it is a rare technology that has caused deaths in a fairly direct way. I think the speculative wave around ICOs and cryptocurrencies is super risky for those who go long. And again, a lot of people are agreeing with him. If you want to find out more about anonymity, you can see it on my Facebook live feed. I talked about it during the break a little bit about the anonymity and a little bit about what the FBI had to say. Okay, but of course the other side is the U.S. dollars also used to buy fentanyl and other nastiness out there. But if you're interested, have a look at the article. We've got a lot of good information out there. Bitcoin, we've heard about it being stolen before. There was a big heist of another cryptocurrency that just this week, those cryptocurrencies, denomination, I don't know what you call them, coins? They're not really coins. It's just cryptocurrency. But the denomination was returned by the hacker that stole it. There's more than 2,000 coins, I think it was. And you hear about that, right? A big exchange in Japan was shut down because someone had broken in and stolen just a wad of cryptocurrency. In fact, in that case, it was Bitcoin. Well, this is kind of a new angle, and this happened over this last couple of months in Iceland. This week, there were arrests. But the best way to mine for cryptocurrencies, remember there's a lot of computations involved and prime numbers. I mean, huge prime numbers, right? Not just regular simple ones, are involved in cryptocurrencies. And the best way to mine is to buy special purpose mining hardware. And that stuff's pretty expensive, but it can mine coins it's designed for. It's not like using a general purpose machine like your laptop or desktop to try and mine. You will lose money if you're doing that in this day and age because it takes so long to find the coins that haven't already been found. So you have to buy these machines. They're available. You can go to eBay. You can find them on eBay. Some of them are as cheap as $10,000. The better ones are a lot more. You know, they're up in the $20,000 or $50,000 range. And they use graphics processors and things, and very, very optimized. Well, a group of Icelandic thieves, and according to the police, they're saying these people were obviously professionals because it was so well thought out, planned, and executed, although they obviously messed up because they got caught. But this hardware was stolen from some data centers in Iceland. And they're saying this is the biggest theft in the island nation's history. So far, 11 people have been arrested in connection with the crime, and the media have called it the big Bitcoin heist. And they were breaking into data centers and stealing the special purpose mining hardware. So it's not as though one guy or company had a whole, big farm of Bitcoin machines that were harvesting, and they broke in and stole them all and ran out. No, they were breaking into a bunch of data centers, finding the Bitcoin mining hardware and stealing it. Now, why Iceland? And I've had this discussion before, why Iceland? Because we've looked at it. My company, Mainstream, we own data centers. We own them, okay? So that we can keep our customers' information safe. That's why you own a data center. I don't want a data center that has other people walking in and out of it. I don't want to have a data center where not only are other people walking in and out of it, but the data is going through paths and I'm not exactly sure if I should trust them, right? Has someone hacked their routers? Has someone hacked the stuff at the edge? You face that no matter what when you're sending data, receiving data on the internet. There's no question, right? There's always a possibility of intercept. But we have our own data centers, and we have them primarily for that reason. Some companies don't want their data crossing state lines. Some companies don't want it out of the city, and other companies don't want it out of the country. And the only way I can guarantee that is by having my own data centers. Well, why did we look at Finland, or Iceland in this case? We looked at Iceland because Iceland's got some of the lowest power costs in the world. Now, in New Hampshire, we have some of the highest in the United States, right? I think we battled for first place, or second place. Hawaii is more. They actually use diesel generators over there for some of their power. But in Iceland, it's very cheap because they're using geothermal. They have a lot of power, very cheap to make. And then the other side, remember, when you're running a data center, you have to cool it. You're using a lot of electricity. You got to get rid of the heat that was generated from the electricity. Iceland tends to be, on the cool side, if not the very cold side, depending on the time of year. So you can cool your data center very easily by just pulling in filtered air from the outside, pushing out your hot air. Makes it very cheap. So Iceland has been used very, very extensively for data centers. And that includes these Bitcoin miners. So it's kind of interesting. This was a theft on a grand scale. 600 of these mining computers worth millions of dollars. I saw a figure on that. Okay, so they're saying about $2 million. And if the thieves actually were to use those computers, they would make a lot more than the $2 million. When we get back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the iPhone. If you can take a minute there's something I'd like you to do for me. If you have been a listener or a watcher for a long time, you know that I try and answer questions here on the air. A lot of the stuff that we talk about here is from our listeners. You can send me a question anytime. We talked about it already. You can just text me, 855-385-5553. We don't take calls here on the air, but we do get texts during the show, and I'll answer them usually. Sometimes I might have to do a little research, so it might be the next week. But anyhow, I want to know what your biggest challenge is so that we can continue to provide you with the best programming possible. So go to craigpeterson.com/biggest challenge, all one word, all lowercase. Tell me what your biggest challenge is. Let me know so we can talk about it here on the air. I have a free gift for people who do that. In fact, we talked about the dark web earlier on the show. We've got a whole new dark web report available for you there. We'll give you one. But craigpeterson.com/biggest challenge. Love to hear from you, including businesses. You know, businesses, we have these problems, but the security somehow never gets a high enough priority until all of our machines are compromised, right? So businesses as well. craigpeterson.com/biggest challenge. Stick around because we'll be right back. We'll be talking about why now pretty much every iPhone model ever made may be hackable. In fact, there are people saying they are. Stick around. We'll be right back. Okay. Wow. Time is going fast. We're almost done here. I want to talk about stolen passwords here for a minute. We all have passwords. We're all using them. Many companies enforce a password policy that is arcane. Let's put it that way. They tell you you have to change your password every 30 days or 60 days, that you have to have uppercase, lowercase, numbers, special characters, right? Does your company do that to you? Well, here's some news for you. The new standards that have been out now for over a year are saying there are better ways to generate passwords, and there are better passwords to use. And when we're talking about better passwords and better passwords to use, basically we're talking about phrases. But there's a new service available that we're going to be offering, in fact, to anyone who wants it here. We may offer it as a bonus to listeners and others. But what it does is it tells you if the password you're selecting has already been stolen in a hack. Because the best way to crack a password is to use known passwords and just try them. So when there's a database that's stolen of passwords, and even if those passwords are slightly encrypted, maybe they used a special algorithm like a SHA-1 or 256, you can now do a brute force attack against those passwords and find what passwords people are using. So this is really nice. Guy in Australia did a lot of work to put this together. You can now check your passwords online. If you're interested, let me know, and we'll tell you how to do that, give you that information. But we're back on the air. Here did the music stop. So now we're going to have a drop. Okay, here goes. Bumper music. Here we go. All right, welcome back, everybody. I was just talking about passwords and the insanity that's been going on with passwords, and how there are ways to make passwords that are good and safe, and that whole thinking, that whole philosophy has changed over the years. So again, you can see that on my Facebook Live if you want to check that out, and that'll be posted as I don't know, what do you call it, a review? A repost, so you can check it out later on and watch it later on today or this coming week. Okay, so we talked just a few weeks ago about a major leak from Apple. Now this was one of the Apple engineers apparently, and he posted the source code for Apple's bootloader. Now the bootloader is what runs on your Apple iOS device when you turn that device on. So you turn it on, that bootloader starts up, and it loads in the latest version of iOS, right? I'm running iOS 11 or 12 or 10 or whatever it is you might be running. Well, having access to that bootloader, which has always been almost impossible for anyone to access, not only can they access it, they have the source code for this stuff. It's incredible. So people now can look and see how the hardware works, how the boot process works, and can be looking for vulnerabilities. Well, there's a company that the feds here in the US have been using for quite a while, as well as individual businesses. In fact, for as little as $1,500, they say they can now and will now unlock pretty much every iPhone that has been made since, I think it was the iPhone 4 or 5, which, by the way, those old ones, a lot of people know it. So the company's called Cellebrite, Cellebrite. So if you're a business owner and one of your employees has an iPhone that you bought for them and they gave back, but they refused to give you the passcode for, you can send it to Celebrite, and for about $1,500, they'll unlock it and send it back to you. If you want, they'll also offload all of the information that's on it, encrypt it, and send it back to you as well. So that's really kind of cool. It's become the US government's hacker of choice, company of choice when it comes to unlocking mobile devices. And it's telling people this week here that, so the customers, it sent out a notice that its engineers currently have the ability to get around the security of devices running iOS 11 that include the iPhone X, a model that Forbes magazine, by the way, has learned was successfully rated for data by Homeland Security. And most likely they were using Celebrite technology as well. This company is a subsidiary of a Japanese company called Sun Corporation. And they haven't made a public announcement, either Sun or Celebrite, and they probably won't. But as I said, they did let their people know. A separate source in police forensics community told Forbes he'd been told by Celebrite it could unlock the iPhone 8. We know the 10's been unlocked, but they're saying they can do the 8, which right now is thought to be the most secure phone out there. Of the stuff you can buy off the shelf, right? There are more secure phones. If you want something that's really secure, look at Silent Circle. Those guys are great. One of the guys I worked with, man, it's been more than 20 years on developing an encryption standard, Phil Zimmerman, in the Unix world. I helped to debug some of the code that he'd put together. But Phil Zimmerman helped to put Silent Circle together. It's used by the CIA and various others. It's really, really quite secure. So it looks like, wow, it's easier to get into. iOS 11 was praised by Celebrite's competitor, Elcom Soft, for new features designed to make it harder for forensic people to get in. So it's one thing to have the police get into a phone with a warrant, right? I'm not against that. I think almost no one would be against that. How about the bad guys? How about the Russians or the Chinese? We know when you go over to China, we've had executives who have had their laptops taken, their cell phones taken, unbeknownst to them. So they're in a meeting and someone slips in, grabs their devices and slips back out, right? They're palmed, they're passed over. Remember, we're talking about the communist Chinese government, the People's Liberation Army, right? They own the company. So they've been stealing them, they've been cracking them, getting all of the data off of them and putting them back. So we're not really talking about the FBI here, although lately there have been some calls of questions as to their investigation techniques. But at any rate, we're talking about the bad guys. We're talking about local thieves who might be stealing them. I had one of my employees, someone just stole her iPhone. Are you kidding me? Stealing an iPhone. It's, almost impossible for regular people to crack. But if Celebrite cracked it, you can bet we have other companies out there that are working on cracking it, and hacking groups are working on cracking it. And you can bet that there will be websites out on the dark web selling and offering to anyone who's willing to pay it the cracking of any iOS device. Obviously, Android's crackable. Been cracked many times. Depends on the phone, right? Some of these fingerprint readers are not very good. But anyways, Celebrite has to have physical access right now. They don't tell people how they crack it, including the government. They don't really know. They can only guess. But because of the timing of this announcement, I'm making an educated guess, right? That's why you're listening here, watching here on this live video feed as well. An educated guess is that it's related to the bootstrap loader being given out by an Apple employee, which is pretty bad here. There's a warrant that was unearthed by Forbes in Michigan showing that they were trying to break into an iPhone X. It detailed a probe into a Saadi, the name of the guy, suspect in arms trafficking, taken from him as he was about to leave America for Beirut, Lebanon on November 20th. This device was sent to Celebrite at the Department of Homeland Security, Grand Rapids Labs. The data was extracted on December 5th. And Saadi's case is due to go to trial July 31st. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. As I said, I'm not worried about the government. They've got warrants. There are checks and balances in a lot of government, but unfortunately not all of the government out there. And those checks and balances are there to help keep us safe. So I'm more worried about the bad guys. And as time goes on, more and more people find out how to do it, and it'll just become commonplace. You got to bet Apple is working on this, right? They've been very, very good about making sure that our information just plain doesn't get out there. So we're very good. We got a couple of other things I want to talk about. We got a big W-2 problem, which is generically known here. This problem the FBI is warning about is called a business email compromise. So I want to give you an example of one that happened. We're going to be putting together some. Part of our weekly newsletter is going to include some examples of how businesses were compromised. Now, this is called social engineering. This is called phishing, and more particularly spear phishing. So I want everyone to know how it happens. So we're going to be including stuff in our newsletters coming out, and then over the course of the next few weeks. It's going to be a little sporadic in our newsletters, but we'll get it to you so that you know how the bad guys are manipulating you as an individual, whether you're like my dad sitting there into his 80s and gets confused about some of the technology and what should he do. He's having problems. He's been a techie for, a good part of his career, but now the technology is just kind of getting out of hand for him. Or you're a business person who's responsible for the technology for your small business or medium-sized business. So we'll talk about that when we get back. This is a great article that you'll have to go to my website or open up this morning's newsletter. You'll find it in there. But there's a company called Palantir, Palantir, Palantir. They've been secretly using some technology down in New Orleans. And if you saw Tom Cruise in Minority Report, you know how predictive policing works. Now, that movie took predictive policing to the ultimate level, where not only were they predicting where crime would occur, but they were also predicting who would commit them, what the crimes were, right? And ultimately arresting people before they had even committed a crime, just on maybe even on thoughts, right? They thought about it. An interesting movie. If you haven't seen it, it is worth watching Minority Report. I really liked it. So when you're talking about Palantir secretly using technology in New Orleans to test its predictive policing technology, does that scare you at all? I don't know. I'm a little worried about it, frankly. So the Orleans Parish District Attorney handed down 2 landmark racketeering indictments against dozens of men accused of membership in 2 violent Central City drug trafficking gangs. Members of both gangs stood accused of committing 25 murders as well as attempted killing and armed robberies. So the BATFE got involved along with the FBI and other local agencies. They came up with more RICO indictments, and it turns out that some of the stuff that they did, some of the technology they used, was this secretive predictive police technology down in New Orleans. The mayor apparently didn't even know this was happening. This is brought in by James Carville. You might remember that name. He was President Bill Clinton's chief strategist for many years. Interesting. But this is kind of deep. There's a 13-page story on this that I think you might want. check in your email. It's part of today's email, went out about 9:30 this morning. And if you're not on my email list, my weekly email, where you get my curated articles, these are the articles I consider to be the best in technology, the things you need to know. Make sure you subscribe right now. Go to craigpeterson.com/subscribe. And don't forget to get the reminders when I'm live here on iHeartRadio. Just text my name, Craig, to me right here. Open up your phone right now, go to the text message, type in 855-385-5553, 855-385-5553, and just text the word Craig to me, and we'll sign you up so you'll remember to listen here on these iHeart radio stations. Stick around. We'll be right back. All right. Can't believe that, boy, show's almost over. Excuse me, I had to cut the volume there as I coughed. All right, live, right? You can always tell it's live. Is it live or is it Memorex? Let me see here. There's so many places to go, so many things to talk about. If you are on Facebook right now, there's a group there's a paid group. There are paid clients in this group. It's called eSec Coach. You can just search for my name. You'll see it, eSecurity Coach, eSec Coach. And you can go straight to facebook.com/eSec Coach and you'll find me there. But in that, we talk about the security issues. It's a little bit of back and forth in the community as we try and discover what the problems are. There's a lot of one-way stuff. It's me telling people what's going on. But there's questions that are asked and answered every day in that group. So if you're watching on Facebook, if you went to facebook.com/Craig Radio, you might want to check this out. It is a closed group. We have to let you into this group. So there's a couple of quick questions to qualify you. But we do let the viewers here, listeners on the radio show, sign up for free. And so we're extending it to the viewers because you guys are watching this. And you notice how I snuck this in towards the end of the radio, or of the video here, right? You notice that? Because I don't want the people who watch 30 seconds to get the benefits of being able to go into my closed group. So all you guys that have gotten this far, you're welcome. Welcome aboard. eSec Coach, just facebook.com/eSec Coach. All right, we're about to come back and get a quick drink of water. There we go. I muted it better that time. Oh my. This morning I was out taking care of the bees. I lost all of my hives. They're all dead. Isn't that terrible? Tens of thousands of dead bees. So I cleaned them out a bit. I'm gonna have to do some more work. And that's because of the bear attack primarily, I think. And then one of the hives survived and it was still weak from the bear attack. And then we got that really, really sub-zero cold weather. And I think that's might be what did them in. And it's just a shame to see it, but well, we're gonna have more bees this year, so we'll see how it goes. And I'm gonna post some video too here so that you can kind of see the devastation that was my beehives this year. Yeah, well, that'll be up on my regular channel, but it's not going to be an eSecurity Coach. Okay, here we go. The FBI has been warning for a while about what's being called a business email compromise. Now, this is a really big deal because we're talking about more than $1 billion worth of theft. They're going after businesses and they're doing their homework. They're not just sitting back and sending out random emails that pretending to be Bank of America or some other random bank, right? They're not doing that anymore. They're hiring professionals. They're hiring researchers that are finding out about your business. So what'll happen, I'm going to give a real world example, is you've got a young lady who, we'll call her Heidi, and she's over, in this case, in Eastern Europe, but they don't have to be. And Heidi's kind of fishing. she's initially trying to figure out which companies she might want to go after. So she finds some people over on Facebook and on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is saying, wow, this guy's the CEO of this company. You know, it's not such a big company that it probably has IT security professionals, right? They're probably just using something simple like Symantec or McAfee, you know, Norton, the stuff that doesn't really work. And maybe they got Barracuda, but, you know, that's a bit of a joke too most of the time. So, you know, what should we do here? You know, okay, well, I'm just going to go ahead. Let me find out. Let me see how good their defenses are. And all those companies that I mentioned, you know, they're trying hard, but they just can't stop the bad guys. The success rate right now, average in the industry, is 60%, 60%, okay? So I'm not really criticizing them too bad. Obviously, I don't use any of them for my customers, right? We have a system that's about 99% effective. So I'm a little biased there, but it's my opinion. Take it as you will. So what she does now is she says she's found the guy or the gal who's running the company. She sends the information off to her friends who do a little more research, and they find out, yeah, that company is worthwhile. And okay, great, the company is worthwhile, so what do I do now? Well, she then sends a Facebook friend request and also LinkedIn request so she can find out a little bit more. And she says, hey, Heidi here, remember that we went out, and this was years ago, you know, in college, we were in the same class over at Harvard, because now she knows, right? She's got your LinkedIn history. She's got your Facebook page. She knows you went to Harvard. She knows you got an MBA, and she knows basically what classes you might have taken. So you accept her friend request. Now she has access to even more information over on their Facebook side. And she digs in a little bit more, and she finds out you are going on a family vacation and you're going to be gone on these dates. So she digs in some more now, and she finds out, oh wow, he is the CEO over here. She got your personal email address. You say, well, who cares? She got my personal email address. Well, in this case, she called up Yahoo. Hey, yeah, this is Mrs. So-and-so. And my husband's out, and I'm trying to get in, and the kids are screaming in the background. And in fact, by the way, take a look on YouTube, and you can find audio of kids screaming in the background. Okay? So she has that playing next to her, and she's sounding more and more anxious, and she ultimately ends up with the guy's Yahoo password. So now she's got his password. She knows he's out of town. She knows what his name is, and she knows who the chief financial officer is in the company. She knows who the accountant is. So she sends email to the CFO from the owner's personal Yahoo address and says, hey, we got this new vendor. He's been with us for about 2 months. We haven't paid his bill. I can't believe you guys. We have to pay it now. If we don't pay his bill right now, we're not going to be able to get any of the stuff from him anymore. So what happened here? Well, the CFO went ahead and wired the $45 million to Heidi and friends. Only takes 90 seconds. Once they have that money in an account here in the US, 90 seconds later, it's gone. That's how fast they can empty accounts. That's a business email compromise. It's happening more and more all of the time. The FBI is warning of a spike in these phishing campaigns. Every year they've been trying to get W-2 information. So keep an eye out, especially if you're a business owner, if you are an accountant, a bookkeeper, because what they're doing is pretending they are the boss. And usually the message sounds something like this. Hey, I need to get a copy of all of the W-2s. We're reviewing them with the outside auditors. Would you please send them to me? So now the bookkeeper, the accountant, the CFO, whomever sends them to the bad guy, who now has the information about the employees, how much money they made, their social security number, their name, and now all they have to do is find the bank account. And you know what? That's not that hard to do, and they've been doing that as well. So keep an eye out. The IRS's online fraud detection and prevention guys, they are very busy trying to prevent this as well. And that reminds me, I'm going to have to reach out personally to all of our customers and remind them about that, because that's a big deal this time of year. All right, I hope you have a great week. We are pretty much done here. Make sure you go online and subscribe. I send out this newsletter every week. It's curated the best technology articles that I can find that I think are important to you. That's craigpeterson.com/subscribe. craigpeterson.com/subscribe. I send out a weekly email. I'd love to hear from you. And make sure also that you pay attention to these, because some of these articles that are in there are very important. They are very urgent. You need to know about them, right? And if you don't follow up, it could cost you a lot. Anything from the family pictures that you've been keeping from vacations all the way through your business. And many businesses have been put out of business by this stuff. So craigpeterson.com/subscribe will keep you up to date. And we're going to be sending out a little series of articles about some of the dark web stuff, about business email compromise. And I'm going to put together a little tool too to help you know how safe you are. Visit us online, craigpeterson.com. Thanks for listening today. I hope you have a great week. Don't forget, if you have questions, let me know. I want to know what your biggest challenge is out there. craigpeterson.com/biggest challenge. And we had one real quick message come in, a quick question about why can't your phone be found using its MAC address. And boy, that's a long explanation. We'll try and get to that next week. Have a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.